Welcome to Mishna study Masechet Shabbat Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about saving sacred writings from a fire on Shabbat. So imagine there's a fire in someone's home, in a Bet Knesset, and they want to save the Sefer Torah. They want to save the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim, right, the Tefillin from the Knis. Where are they allowed to? Are you allowed to save them on Shabbat? If you're allowed to save them, where are you allowed to save them to? Right? Could you take them all the way to the Reshut Rabim? Right? You can't carry on Shabbat. You can't take them to the Reshut Rabim. Where are you allowed to save them to? So Kol Ketvei HaKodesh, all the sacred writings, you're allowed to save them from a fire on Shabbat. Ben she'korim bahem, ben she'en korim bahem. Whether you read them or you don't read them. Right? Now, this is not speaking to you personally, whether or not you read, Nevi'im and Ketuvim on Shabbat, or if you don't. This is saying whether it's something that's read on Shabbat or not read on Shabbat. So we know there's a gezerah. There was a gezerah that the Chachamim made that a person is not allowed to read Ketuvim on Shabbat. And this was because they saw that people weren't coming to the Chacham's shiur on Shabbat. They were giving a class, and people weren't showing up because they were sitting home and reading Ketuvim. Mishna, right? Ezra, Nehemiah, things that really moshech lev, things that really they draw a person's, they speak to a person's heart. So they were staying home and reading this instead of coming to the rabbi's class. And they made a takana that you're not allowed to read Ketuvim. You're not allowed to read Ketuvim. This was the books she'en korim bahem, the books that you don't read on Shabbat. So they made this takana, and it's actually the takana specific to the time of the class itself. Those are books that en korim bahem Shabbat, that you don't read on Shabbat, or books that you read on Shabbat. There's a Nevi'im are books that you're allowed to read on Shabbat. So you're allowed to save both of these on Shabbat from a flame. Even if they're written in any language, right? They can be written in English. Let's say there were Navi was written in English, right? So it's going to be translation, maybe better a transliteration, right? All these items need geniza, not necessarily on Shabbat, any day of the week, right? These needs geniza. How come you're not allowed to read these books of Ketuvim on Shabbat, right? We said ben she'en korim bahem. What do you mean not allowed to read them on Shabbat? As we mentioned, because the takana, because the Chachamim saw people weren't coming to the Bet Midrash, and therefore they made this takana that you're not allowed to read Ketuvim on Shabbat at the time when the Chacham is giving his shiur. Now the Mishnah continues, and it explains not only allowed to save the Sefer Torah, you're also allowed to save the case with the Sefer Torah, right? So matzilin tika sefer ima sefer. You could save the case of the book with the book itself. The tik tefillin ima tefillin. Also the case or the koracha of the tefillin with the tefillin itself. Even if there's coins inside the koracha, so you say, there's muktzeh also. Even so, you're allowed to save that whole koracha with it. Why you're allowed to save them too? So Tanakh Kama says, the mavoy she'enu mefudash, right? Literally, it means to a alleyway that's not open-ended. And Bebetera Omer Afla Mefulash. Bebetera says even to a mefulash, even to an open-ended alleyway. So literally, it means an alleyway that's open-ended on both sides. The only problem is that really can't be, right? Because that's considered a Reshut Rabim already practically, right? So it can't be Ben Betera is talking about. So it has to be Ben Betera is really talking about to a an open-ended alley on one side, right? So it's like a U-shaped. It's a U-shaped alley, and that's where you're allowed to save that sefer, those books and those tefillin too. So then, what's Tanakh Kama saying when you say you're allowed to save it to a mavoy she'enu mefudash, right? To a non-open-ended valley that seemingly was that U-shaped valley. So how are we going to explain Tanakh Kama now? So Tanakh Kama is talking about to a U-shaped valley that also has a lechi, right? That also has a post, right? A bar on the side to show that the alleyway ends over here. According to Tanakh Kama, right, and halachas like him, that's where you're allowed to save these two, right? So it doesn't have to be to a house, it doesn't have to be to a courtyard, right? But it does have to be to an area that's still enclosed from three sides, and it has a lehi, right? And it has this post over there. That's where you're allowed to save these two. But let's say your option was to take it to the Reshut Rabim, you can't, right? You're not allowed to carry on Shabbat. That's deoraita. That's an issue where a person is chayam mitah for carrying it. So even in a case where there are sacred writings, right? There are tarachim could God forbid be on fire. You still can't violate Shabbat deoraita to save them. Rather, you're only allowed to save them to a mavoy, right? A mavoy that has a lechi over there as well. That's what the halacha is, and that's our Mishnah.